Welcome back to the On the Road Sports Talk Show. I'm your host, Landon Rhoads, bringing you episode 2 of this COVID-impacted season 2 as we bring it once again from my living room. Here with me today is my high school friend, Dietrich.
Hello. Thanks for having me on the show.
Sure, thanks for being on. Dylan and I, we go way back. We love to talk sports, so I wanted to get his takes on the Week 9 NFL action, most of which has already taken place, but we do have a Monday night game tonight to preview as well. So, Dylan, we're going to get started here with the Thursday night game. Packers-Niners, you and I were both Packers guys. But not exactly a fair matchup coming in. The Niners have some injury issues, some COVID issues as well. Bosa out, Garoppolo out, Mostert, left tackle Trent Williams. So we already knew coming into this it might not be a great game, and it kind of lived up to that. But I will say that I did like what the Packers showed. I mean, at least the Packers did what they were supposed to do. They didn't choke to an undermanned team. So what's your take on the Thursday night game?
A bunch of injuries and obviously coronavirus positive tests as well. I feel like there's always, every season there's at least like one or two teams where they just have too many injuries that, it ruins their season. I think the Niners are definitely that team this year. They're not going to have a good year this year. They have too many injuries. Like they're not going to be the team that they were last year. And they might be able to run it back next year and, kind of put together a season similar to what they had last year. But just it's not their year, And the Packers definitely did what they were supposed to do and handled them, And they did look really good. Devontae Adams had a big game. Rodgers looked back on track after kind of looking not his best self the past 2 weeks against the Bucs and the Vikings. So, yeah. Packers.
Yeah, definitely. With Jimmy Garoppolo, I've heard some rumors that they might be looking for a new quarterback after this season, as soon as after this season. But it is worth mentioning that they were in the Super Bowl last year with Garoppolo. So do you think it's a little premature?
I mean, here's the thing. They've proven that they can succeed with him. Like you said, they have made a Super Bowl with him as their starting quarterback. At the same time, they paid him $153 million. Is that the number? Like, he's definitely not worth that. We know that he's not worth that, So I think moving on from him might be a little bit premature, but they definitely need to do some internal evaluation of, why they decided to pay that man $153 million. They probably should take a long, hard look in the mirror. And
for sure.
But at the same time, I don't know if it's really worth moving on from, at the same, I don't know if they're going to be able to find better options, if they were, then I definitely think it would be worth looking into. But at the same time, you already have enough money tied up in Garoppolo. You might as well try and, make the best of it while you can.
Definitely. Don't want to give up on a large investment too quickly. But so moving on to Texans Jaguars, that was a division battle there. Texans came out on top by 2. It was a thrilling game, a 2-point conversion at the end, failed by the Jaguars. But we got to see Jake Luton get the start with Minshew's hand injury, and he actually looked decent. And I mean, good game for Deshaun Watson on the Texans side, and starting running back David Johnson barely even played in this game because he got hurt so early. So takeaways from this one?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Jake Luton, there's been a couple backup quarterbacks who played pretty well this week. Him, Garrett Gilbert, too. They kind of both, held their own. They lost, but at the same time, they hung in there. And I think the Texans kind of have been a bit of a disappointment this year. I think everyone was kind of expecting them to have seasons similar to what they've had in the past, but I don't know really what's going on there. I think that part of it's just like organizational turmoil. Fired Bill O'Brien, and haven't had a general manager for the past season and a half at least, or something like that. So I think part of that has part to do with it, but they're definitely a talented team, and so I kind of expected them to win almost every week, you know what I mean? But at the same time, they just don't perform like they should. And the Jaguars are a decent football team. They have a losing record. Obviously, they're not winning games, but at the same time, they're always hanging in there. They play kind of frisky, I guess. So it was a good game.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the division matchups are a lot of fun, but I would say as a whole, a lot of that division is underperforming right now, whether that be the Texans, the Colts, the Jaguars, even to some degree. I would almost say the Titans are the only team not underperforming right now.
Then they lost to Cincy last week.
Yeah, so maybe the whole the whole division underperforming a little bit.
That division always struggles. I think there was like the winner of that division never does better than 9-7,
Yeah.
10-6. I feel.
Well, speaking of bad divisions, Giants, Washington here. So the Giants come out on top 23-20. Actually, this is what I predicted because I watched Giants Buccaneers on Monday night, and I thought the Giants held their own much better than I thought they would in that game. Daniel Jones looked decent. I was definitely a Daniel Jones doubter in the beginning. I think he's proving he can at least do decently, and he's very young. But for Washington, we actually got to see Alex Smith return, which crazy after his injury, and but Washington's got a bunch of other injuries, which opened the door for him once again. But 3 interceptions for Alex Smith, so not exactly the heroic return. What are your takeaways from this game?
Watching Alex Smith play after that injury, I feel like I'm just always expecting something terrible to happen. Like I don't, I wish Alex Smith the best, but at the same time, I just am so nervous every time he takes the field because I just don't want him to have another horrible injury in his career to be over. It's kind of scary that he's still playing, honestly. But yeah, the NFC East is tough, dude. It's tough to watch. It's awful. I've watched some NFC East division games that are just some of the worst football games I've ever seen.
Agreed.
It happens every week. They're terrible. It's a horrible division. There are 4 awful football teams, and somebody's going to make the playoffs out of 4 of them. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this game kind of sums up the division in the sense that it almost towards the end of this game, it felt like neither team wanted to win. Like they kept giving each other chances to win, and that's kind of the division as a whole, I would say.
I would say every division game I've seen, that I've watched, front to back or whatever, no one has ever really had a definitive win. It's just somebody's got to win this game, so one of the teams will win it, but they're both just bad teams, and nothing is really going on.
And one of these teams has to win the division, so we will see.
It's really quite the race. Quite the race.
Yeah. So
to make it.
Oh, to win it?
Yeah.
As of right now, I would say the Eagles with an outside chance of Giants, but we'll just see. But moving on to maybe a better game talent-wise for sure. We got Ravens Colts. So quiet day for Lamar Jackson, actually. And I mean, I think we do need to give some credit to the Colts defense. I think they're pretty solid. But he only had 1 touchdown. It was a rushing touchdown. But the Ravens defense really came to play. There was a controversial interception for Marcus Peters where he got 2 feet down with the ball, but then he dropped it. So a lot of people were wanting that to be incomplete. I don't know. I'm not even going to give an opinion on that. It was called an interception, but then there was also a 65-yard fumble recovery touchdown. So Ravens defense, really both defenses, good game.
Yeah, defensive battle. Those are 2 good teams, honestly. I think the highlight of that game was during that 65-yard fumble recovery that you talked about. Phil Rivers just had an absolutely incredible attempt at tackling Chuck Clark.
From his back, right?
Yeah, no, yeah. That man is really something.
Yeah, I appreciated the hustle from Rivers, but I bet the Colts would have appreciated Rivers scoring a touchdown.
Yeah. He might be a little bit washed up at this point. I think he's only got so much gas left in the tank for old Phillip Rivers.
I like Rivers. I always kind of hoped he would get a Super Bowl before it was all said and done, but I just don't know.
He's a borderline Hall of Famer. If you look at his all-time passing statistics, it's right up there with all the great names that we always mention. he is a really great quarterback, but he's just never had the postseason success of like all the other greats that we think of, you know.
Or even the other QBs in his draft class.
I always wish Philip Rivers the best, and that the Colts are a good organization. You know, they consistently put together. You mentioned they have a good defense this year. It seems like they always, you know, put a good defense on the field. You know, so they're good. They're a good team. I think
Definitely.
I expect them to make a decent.
I could see a wild card Colts team possibly, depending on how things shake out. But moving on, we got another interdivision battle here. This is the NFC North, the Vikings and the Lions. And this one played out basically how I thought it would as well. There was some question as to whether Stafford would even play. There was some COVID test earlier in the week that was positive, but he was negative prior to game time. So Stafford did play, but he got a concussion. So tough week for Stafford. But I mean, Dalvin Cook, man, 200 yards. That guy is a beast right now. And Kirk Cousins actually looked great as well. And I think Justin Jefferson may be Rookie of the Year candidate as well.
I think you know, Dalvin Cook's been on fire these past 2 weeks, and it definitely makes Kirk Cousins' job a lot easier when you have a rushing threat such as Dalvin Cook. You know, I mean, he's taken 2 back-to-back 200-yard games. You know, I mean, he's always a threat to break one to the house. You know, so that definitely makes Kirk Cousins' job a lot easier when Dalvin Cook's playing like that. And obviously, the Vikings, even after trading Stephon Diggs, like Justin Jefferson's really coming to his own. They still have a lot of offensive weapons. And they're another team that, like I was saying with Houston earlier, they're kind of just surprising that they haven't been playing quite as well. But at the same time, they're always a talented team. They're always like, you know, a threat to win a game, you know. And I definitely expected them to win this game against Detroit this week, and they definitely took care of business. So really
Definitely.
no surprise there.
I think the NFC North is a pretty good division. I think the Lions are the only ones that I can confidently say I don't think will make the playoffs. So we'll see how that goes. But speaking of the NFC North, we have Titans-Bears, a 1-touchdown game. Actually wasn't as close as the final score might indicate. 2 touchdowns for the Bears in the final 5 minutes. Nick Foles throws 52 passes. That's pretty wild.
That just cannot ever be a recipe for success. You know? When how many times do you think Nick Foles has thrown over 50 passes in a game and they've just had a like statement victory? I would be willing to guess that number is 0.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a little ridiculous. I mean, Montgomery, the running back, didn't have a good game, but all the same. I mean, and also to be fair, like I mentioned, the score was really out of hand for a lot of the game, so that probably had to do with the amount of passes, but...
So yeah, absolutely, I agree with that. You know, playing from behind, that's always tough. But yeah, the Bears have a good record, but at the same time, I don't really trust them to ever, you know, I'm not afraid of the Bears. You know, if I was the NFL team and playing them, they definitely have a lot of weaknesses. And I would not be afraid to play them. You know, even though they have a decent record right now, they're 5-4 or something like that. But
yeah. I agree. I think the Titans are a pretty good team too, giving them a little respect. Derrick Henry, actually not that good of a game, but again, the Bears defense is good. So it's hard. The takeaways from this game are a little hard because I think the teams played into each other's strength a little bit. It was a tough matchup for both. But moving on, we have Chiefs-Panthers, a game that I know was closer than I thought it was going to be. I really should probably stop underestimating the Panthers, especially with McCaffrey back from injury this last game. He had a decent first game back, but really Teddy Bridgewater, he was playing hero ball out there. He was
Teddy really gloves.
Yeah, he was. I saw him diving for first downs, doing all kinds of stuff, and the Panthers were a 67-yard field goal away from winning this game right at the end. That would have been crazy, but it was actually long enough. It was just wide right. So what are your takeaways from this game? Is it more good job Panthers? Is it more bad job Chiefs? I mean, Mahomes had a pretty classic Mahomes game, nearly 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. So I'd say, if anything, I would maybe pick on the Chiefs' defense a little bit. But what's your take on that?
I think it was a good game by the Panthers. I mean, their first drive of the game lasted 9 minutes. And I think that's like really good, an example of really good coaching, because obviously you don't want to give Patrick Mahomes the ball, you know? So like taking as much time as possible. And they busted out a couple of trick plays of that fourth down fake punt that, you know, just got him some extra yards. You know, you have to bust things out like that against a team like the Chiefs, you know? You're not going to be able to just like play your everyday game and win against a really great team like that and a transcendent quarterback and transcendent offense such as the Chiefs. So I thought they played a really good game, and obviously, you know, they had an opportunity to win it if a couple of things break their way, you know, shake out differently. They could have easily won that game, and I think the Panthers should be taken seriously. I think they're a pretty good team, and I think they can definitely win on any given Sunday. You know what I mean? They're not bad, especially with McCaffrey back. They really stayed afloat without McCaffrey, and Mike Davis really played well for them. But yeah, I think they're well coached and really good team.
Agreed. So next game, it was my personal favorite coming into it. I was really looking forward to this Bills-Seahawks matchup. I thought it would clear the air about how legit these two teams are. I still don't know if those questions are really completely answered after this, but Josh Allen for sure got back on track. I actually thought the Seahawks were going to win this. I'm just going to go ahead and say that up front. But neither team ran the ball very much. The Seahawks, their running back core is really banged up right now, but I was a little surprised to see not too many handoffs for Moss and Singletary from the Bills, but also a rare bad game for Russell Wilson, I would say, with the 2 interceptions, but he really had his back against the wall, it seemed, almost every time they had the ball. He had to score a touchdown because of how bad that Seattle defense was. And I mean, the Bills scored 44. That kind of speaks for itself. So your takeaways from this one?
You kind of touched on a little bit. Russell Wilson always seems like is in a tough situation where it's all on him to score. And most of the time he does. And I think it's really, you know, a testament to how good of a quarterback he is. But it always seems like they're in a tight one-score game or something like that where they just need Russ to just do something and pull off the victory. And this week, I think the defense let him down a little bit, obviously giving up 44 points to a Bills offense that honestly has looked pretty shaky at times. You know, they have talent, but at the same time, they don't always put up the points that you would expect them to. And I think part of that is because Josh Allen has played pretty inconsistently this year. And I do believe Josh Allen to be like a really good quarterback, but at the same time, he definitely has some things to improve on, I would say, still as a young quarterback. But, you know, I mean, he obviously played really well against Seattle this week, so it's definitely a good sign for him. But, yeah, like you said, too, I was definitely expecting Seattle to win this game, but, I mean, you know, anything can happen. It's and like you said too, I don't really think it cleared the air at all. Like I think Seattle's still a good team, and I think Buffalo's a good team too. You know, it's just I think if they play that game again, you know, could be a completely different result. You know,
Definitely. I think it doesn't clear up too much either way, but we'll just have to see come playoff time. I expect both these teams obviously to be there. So. Moving on, not exactly as high-powered as that one. We had Broncos Falcons. So Broncos had a 21-point fourth quarter, which made the final score look a lot better, kind of like the Titans-Bears game. Drew Lock, 3 total touchdowns, 1 interception, and he actually led the Broncos in rushing with 47 yards, which is not good. That's
not ideal. I don't think that the Denver coaching staff going into this game said, hey, you know what? We really need Drew Lock to take over our rushing attack this week.
Yeah.
Really put us in a position for success. I don't really think that was their game plan. So.
But, I mean, I got to call out Melvin Gordon a little bit on that. They brought you in there to be the running back, and I mean, it's not just him. They obviously, the Broncos have a few different running backs. They have Lindsey, and he didn't do anything either, but I don't know. I don't think of the Falcons as a shutdown defense running or passing the ball, so
arguably the exact opposite of a shutdown defense.
Yeah, so
seems like teams come back against them every single week. They have big leads, and then their defense just blows it. So
absolutely,
not exactly the Iron Curtain or whatever. But
I was expecting a big Julio game coming into this, but he was actually the third leading receiver, which the reason I expected him to go off was because Ridley was out. But he did catch a touchdown, but which sometimes is Julio's issue. A lot of times he'll have a really good game, but he won't score a touchdown. For sure. Yep. Yeah. Yep. Well, maybe two of the not as good teams in the NFL, to be polite about it, but arguably maybe the best in the NFL right now, for sure, record-wise, Steelers, and then playing the Cowboys, and similarly to the Panthers Chiefs, a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. Big Ben did get hurt, but he returned to the game. James Conner didn't really do too much, but they had the same three receivers getting the job done that have been getting it done all season. It was Claypool, Johnson, and Juju. And then at the end, it took a defensive stop in the end zone. I mean, it was kind of a Hail Mary, but all the same, Gilbert did a decent job against an undefeated team for the Cowboys. And for whatever reason, Tony Pollard outrushed Zeke on half as many carries. So just some thoughts. I don't know what your takeaways were watching this game.
I don't know what's going on with Dallas. Obviously, you know, they have some quarterbacking issues, but at the same time, Zeke has looked awful these past few weeks. Like, he has just not been himself. So I really don't know what's going on there. Their defense is like, they get lit up every week, it seems like, except, I guess they did a decent job against the Steelers, but the Steelers are a much better team than Dallas. It seems like maybe they just didn't get, in the right mindset going on the road to Dallas, you know what I mean? Because I think they looked at their record, they looked at Dallas's record and said, this is going to be an easy dub. Didn't take it quite as seriously as they could have. And they were down 13-0 at one point in this game, so they had to kind of pull this win out at the end, you know what I'm saying? So, but that's also a testament to them. They still, pulled it out in a game they very easily could have lost. It's surprising as it is to say that against a pretty bad Dallas team. But no, they got the job done. Credit to the Steelers. I guess they pulled it out, so.
Yeah, a win's a win.
I think they're probably the favorite in the AFC at this point.
I would agree. It's hard to argue with the undefeated record. But moving on then, I guess, to along with the Bills Seahawks game, probably the other game I was looking forward to the most was Saints Bucks. But unlike that Seattle Buffalo game, this one did not even come close to living up to the hype. It's Tom Brady's worst loss of his career. He went no touchdowns, 3 interceptions. The rushing attack was horrible. It was Ronald Jones for 9 yards, Fournette for none, and Blaine Gabbert for -1, and that was it. Antonio Brown, his debut, 3 catches for 31 yards. Could have been worse, I suppose, given how bad other things went for the Bucks. But Drew Brees on absolute fire. 12 different receivers caught a pass. That's like some Aaron Rodgers stuff right there. That's something that Rodgers and Brees both do it really well. Some other storylines from this: Jameis Winston got in at the end against his old team very briefly. I thought Taysom Hill looked great. And also the return of Michael Thomas, and he was their leading receiver, but that was 5 catches, 51 yards because Brees spread the ball out so well. So what's your takeaway from this absolute beating that Brady and the Bucks took last night?
Yeah, I definitely think it's just a classic Saints victory. I feel like, They definitely have been very consistent of, they have a very high performing organization over these past few years, and I think Sean Payton did a good job coaching this game, front to back, and like you said, that the Tampa Bay rushing offense didn't really get involved at all. I think they only handed the ball off 9 or 10 times. So I think part of that is just like they're having to play catch up the entire time. Saints came out their first few drives, put points on the board, and after that, Brady's playing catch up. And as great of an offense as they have, and as good of weapons as they have, and great of a quarterback as Tom Brady is, it's really hard to do that. Against a good Saints team. So I definitely think that the Saints got it done. On both ends of the ball, they played really well. And I think that the Bucs they've proven that they're still a really big threat. And, they obviously didn't look their best this week, but they just still did it. Add Antonio Brown, I definitely don't think we saw the full potential of that. And I think that it's not time to write off the Bucs by any means. They looked bad this week, but I definitely still think they've got a lot of potential to make something happen in the rest of the season. So.
Agreed. I do think sometimes people are quick with the hot takes, whether that be Buffalo, Seattle, whether that be New Orleans, Tampa Bay. I think we do need to just relax a little bit, see how things play out. But to your point about the rushing, the Bucs handed the ball off 5 times, or actually 4 times, because Gabbert was one of them, which I'm assuming was a run, so a QB run. So really bad. But anyway, moving on to our preview, the one game that is yet to be played here is tonight, Monday night, New England versus the New York Jets. The Patriots traditionally kind of own this rivalry. Sam Darnold's out. The Jets have not won a game. Joe Flacco's expected to start. He certainly is familiar with the Patriots. He's not familiar with the Brady-less Patriots, but he's definitely, that shouldn't affect him too much anyway because he's going against the defense. But also Jamison Crowder, questionable. That's the best receiver that the Jets have. So seems like on paper an easy Patriots victory. I think the line is Patriots -10 on this. So what's your take? The Patriots do have some injuries of their own as well, though.
Pats are covering that. They're winning and covering. I cannot believe on November 9th, 2020, the New York Football Jets are starting Joe Flacco and Frank Gore. How is that possible? Those guys are both washed like 5 years ago.
Agreed.
Like their careers are almost over, and they're still playing. I think that's unbelievable. And obviously, the Patriots have had quite the transition without Brady. They haven't, been playing to the regular standard that we've seen them play the past 20 years. But at the same time, I still have faith in Bill Belichick at this point, especially against the New York Jets. I think that, anything that can be questioned about the Patriots, I don't think that, winning against the 0-8 Jets is one of them. I think that they will definitely get the job done tonight. I honestly just don't see a world in where the Jets win this game.
Yeah, I agree. I expect the Patriots to win, as it seems most people do. But in a game that might seem like there's not much on the line, I would argue there's actually a good deal on the line for Cam Newton, though. If he found some way to lose this game, I would expect the Patriots to look for another quarterback. Do you agree with that? They benched him in that 49ers blowout against the Patriots, and I can't imagine his leash is particularly long, and losing to the Jets would cut any leash at least in half, I would assume.
I agree. And at the same time, it's not like they have, MVP sitting on the bench, Jared Stidham's not going to do anything better. I think they definitely have to try and figure out how to play to Cam's strengths and, still be able to get the job done. I think that Bill Belichick always figures out a way to bring the best out of the teams, no matter what the roster looks like. And obviously this is not the best roster they've had. It's probably the worst roster they've had ever since, he's taken over as head coach. So he's got a lot to figure out, but at the same time, I think that he has a proven record of, being able to being able to make teams play above their what you'd expect. You know what I mean? And as far as like teams that we've talked about too, like the Falcons or Houston, like talented teams that have been underperforming, Patriot teams under Bill Belichick have typically been overperforming for what they for what type of rosters they have. So, and right now they have not been performing that well, but at the same time, I do expect them to have a decent second half of the season, and kind of maybe they'll use this Jets win today, or potential win, I guess, as starting to get some momentum for the rest of the season moving forward. So.
Definitely, and hats off to the Patriots coaching staff for the overperforming, like you're talking about. A lot of that falls back on the coaches. But that's all we have for this week. Thank you, Dylan, for coming on the show.
It's been a pleasure.
And next week, we're going to be looking at the hottest sports stories, both predictable and non. I'm sure we'll be looking at some more NFL action, but also anything that is unforeseen. I will be covering that as well. So can't wait to bring that to you. As always, stay safe out there and have a good week.